Let's go. The Washington Commanders. There it is. Yeah, buddy. This is Washington Football Weekly. I'm your boy, Sean Spencer, with my guy, Mr. Will Kramer. And it just occurred to me that if you don't know what I'm wearing, you could potentially think I'm wearing a Cowboy shirt. So I'm just going to scroll down. This is West Virginia, not the Dallas Cowboys. My fiance's amazing sister, Kim Thompson, is a huge West Virginia fan, living out in West Virginia, and she gave me this for Christmas, and I just love it. It feels so good. It's airy, so it can breathe. You know, I need it. So I definitely had to wear it. Not a Cowboys. On Washington. Right. Let's get it.
I saw that. I did earlier. I'm like,
I was looking at it like, oh, no, just the way it looks. I was like, oh, dang. Yeah, buddy. Evening, ladies and gents. What is going on? I don't know who that one is.
I don't see him on the page either just yet.
Yeah. So I don't know. But let's go into it. And we might be here for a little bit of time. Commanders 2023 expiring contracts. And Will, I'm going to bring this up. Just to take a look at some of these names that are on here, and I'll try to read them over really quickly. We have Wes Schweitzer, Deron Payne, Trey Turner, Cam Sims, Taylor Heineke, F.A. Obata, Tyler Larson, John Bostic, David Mayo, Jonathan Williams, Danny Johnson, Nate Gary, Nick Martin, Wes Martin, brothers, Jeremy Reeves, and let me clean this bottom part real quick.
Is it Kaliki Hudson?
Milo. Yeah. Rashad Wild Goose, Eli Wolf, and Cole Holcomb. Last but most certainly not least, Cole Holcomb.
Right, not least, no.
No. So looking at that, Will, let me know what are your thoughts? I mean, I think obviously the one that we definitely bring up to the top is Deron Payne. We know this is the year that he has been 100% going after that contract. He did not disappoint at all, now into the Pro Bowl. You know what I mean? So what is that the number one goal? And then from there, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at, by the way, it's Anton that came in. My Facebook feed finally refreshed and I got to see him. So, hey, Anton.
What up, Anton?
So what I'm looking at here, honestly, we don't have a whole lot of impactful players that have expiring contracts that we have to make a decision on. So that part is fortunate. The big overall theme, though, is we've got a massive one to be considering, and that's Deron Payne. And what are we going to do about that? Because for starters, we got two starters. Holcomb and Payne are the two starters, but everyone else are backups or depth guys. Yeah, I agree with Anton. Reeves needs to get he's an absolute, what he proved there.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not even worried about that. I think they know that we'll get that one done. But other than that, I mean, we've got two starters and that's it. So from that standpoint, we're all looking at depth pieces there. But we got the big one. So you want to get in and talk about him? Start off with Deron Payne? Let's do it.
Definitely.
So this is a tough one, all right? And this is where I'm real intrigued to see what the team does because they're in a big dilemma. So you got Deron Payne, who, last year he balled out. 11.5 sacks. He made the Pro Bowl. You could say he was our best player on defense. If you go definitely by the stats-wise, that looks like it. Going into this last season, I think we wrote him off. I think the coaching staff kind of said he makes us better, so we're going to keep him, but we're going to let him go at the end of the year. And then he has this massive deal, season. And are you going to, the kind of thought is we have a Pro Bowl player. Are we going to let a Pro Bowl player walk out the door?
Right.
And the other thing to think about here is our defensive line anchors the defense. The defense is what helps us win 7 games a season.
Yep.
Are we going to lose a major part of that defense? And are we willing to risk that, and hurt the overall team because we've got this, potential big contract? Now, let's kind of look at the team a little bit so we kind of have an idea of what we got. So you've got Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. The other two defensive tackles that are in the rotation are John Ridgeway, and then we'll get Fedarian Mathis back.
Mathis back, right?
So Ridgeway and Mathis are your bigger bodies. They're going to take up blockers. Where Allen and Payne can do that, but then they can also penetrate the passer. All right. So you can't just simply say let Payne go and we've got Mathis and Ridgeway. We're good, right? Because there's an aspect of getting pressure on the quarterback that they don't provide. That's not their thing. So that's what kind of complicates this whole situation. So it's just kind of that. It's just like the background is what we're kind of dealing with. But now we got to look at what's the cost going to be. Right now we're already paying Allen $17-18 million a year. Mm-hmm. Are you going to give Deron Payne something similar to that? So now we're paying over $30 million to a position. Philly's doing it with their guys, and they're successful. And the league is changing to where internal pressure is becoming a little bit more important. But that's a lot of money to be putting on the interior, all right? Or if you franchise tag him, you're looking at a 1-year contract, $18-20 million most likely is what he's going to get. Mm-hmm. Can we really afford to build around that, if we're putting that much money into somebody else? Whereas if you did a long-term deal, you could probably start with the lower cap for next year and kind of build with it. So that's a way to kind of work with the cap. But that's just where we're at. Plus, you also got to look at does Deron Payne want to be here? 5 straight years of mediocrity and losing. Right. Does he want to be here? So before I get into like my thoughts on it, I want to give you a chance to talk now that I've just kind of outlined. This is kind of what they're all dealing with. Like there's a lot of complexities. It's not just we got a Pro Bowl player. Are you going to keep him or not? There's a lot more to this. What are you kind of thinking?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Does he want to come back? That's we all know the issues he had at the end of last year where him and Jonathan Allen were kind of going at it on the sidelines, but that seems to be patched up. But B, yes, the money, but then it begs that question. Jonathan Allen and him are a good 1-2 punch, and I almost would liken them to the 1-2 punch we have at running back. And it's kind of like if you take one of the running backs away, how dangerous is the other one without him? We know if we take Robinson away, Gibson struggles, and Robinson maybe he's a little better, and maybe Jonathan Allen can stand alone. But at the same time, the way that they played off of each other, so much so that we talked about Deron Payne's TFLs a year ago, and it was like it's a little known stat, and people we don't. It's not really the sacks and the big name thing, but he's really making a difference in the middle. I just don't know that. Especially we're on this trajectory up. If we can pay him, he wants to stay here. I just don't know that you go around that. You go away from that. Definitely, I don't think franchise tag him because we don't going to get into a situation where it's like, okay, we're paying you for 1 year because you're doing what to prove that or are we just paying you to keep you here and hope we win? Right. Let's be direct. Let's be forward and to the point about it and say we like what you've done. You obviously made a Pro Bowl, X, Y, and Z. If you'll have us, we'll have you. Let's talk. Because like you said, we extend that, give him a longer contract, then it is about where the money comes in. The first year he might be making a little bit lower, but it'll get higher as you go. So I just can't see our D-line without him, me personally. But again, I was one root for him to dominate. We've been talking about him wanting that money. He's set himself up for it. But here's another one, going back to the owner conversation. Does he want to stick around to see if this mess goes? Like, you know what I mean? Because, let's be very honest. You have these guys, these players are kind of like, dude, we know we haven't been vocal about it in the media and this and that, but it's something that's on their mind. And that, look, they don't want to be a part of it. A lot of people don't want to be a part of an organization that even though they might be on the up and up, what people see the organization as is a dumpster fire or trash or everything like that, because that's going to be the difference between getting, these guys are great on the line, but why can't we get, we're talking about Cole Hope in a minute. Why can't we get a big name linebacker to come here to play for us and whatever would have you? Because the money's funny at times, the ownership is funny at times, and these guys, they just don't want that name. Oh, you were at Washington? They don't want their name to be associated with that. So a lot of it is on him, but in my opinion, I say we got to keep him. We can't start to rebuild that defensive. That is our unit, that D line. That especially if we get Chase Young back and hopefully get him healthy this year, that's our unit. So we have got to solidify that line. In my opinion, I know it's going to be a steep price, but I think we should pay it. I think we should keep him around here and hope that he gives us all of that he gave us this year. The other side of that, as we've seen people, namely Zeke in Dallas, you give him a fat contract, and he kind of gets a little fat in the first year, then he loses weight in the second year, and he just has literally been non-existent. So much that I don't even think he had 100 yards on the ground in a game this year. You know what I mean? It's been pretty rough for him. So that's one of the things where it's like, grass is always greener, and you're always looking at, oh yeah, maybe you can go. But if we pay the man, we expect great things. Hopefully he does that. And we're all looking at this last season like, oh yeah, if he does that for us every single year, this is great, but that's not reality. So I want to keep him. But that money is steep, man. You're absolutely right. But is it worth it? I think it is. Most of the teams in the playoffs right now, if you look at the Eagles, you look at San Francisco, both stout D lines, both solid interior, lines. And then who you got? Kansas City with what? Chris Jones. You know what I mean? And some of those guys on the inside. And then you got Hendrickson and some of those guys in Cincinnati that have been really proven and showing up as of late. So
DJ Reader.
Right. Exactly. You need to have that D line to stop the run and the pressure and just to make the quarterback uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And every one of our quarterbacks in our division is a runner.
Yeah.
So, getting them out of the pocket and getting them uncomfortable is something that we absolutely need. I say keep them. That's on me. But
so you're saying long-term deal is your wish.
I'm saying long-term. Let's solidify it.
Well, and you bring up great points. I mean, the league is starting to come on notice where they always talk about your outside pass rush was most important. Well, they're also noticing now getting that interior push against the center and guards, and so the quarterback can't step up or he gets pressure in his face and has to run away is becoming more and more important and becoming an emphasis. The other thing, if you think about it, we talk about, say we let him go. Now you got Allen as our pass rusher, Ridgeway and Mathis as our plug the gap guys. Mm-hmm. That's also going to let the offense know kind of what type of defense we're running. Right now, when you've got Allen and Payne who can do both, you don't know who is the penetrator on that play. So if you need to double team Jonathan Allen because Phidarian Mathis is not, his first step is not upfield, it's to the side, that may be all the time you need to get a playoff. So that kind of takes away that element of surprise. The other part, though, that the challenging part with a long-term deal that we have to think of is two things. One, if we sign him to a long-term deal, this is the last season of Montez Sweat. After that, it's the last season of Chase Young. And so the next two seasons, you're having to make decisions on these guys. So it's just there's potential for a lot of money to be along that defensive line. But here's the biggest unknown when it comes to can you sign Deron Payne to a long-term deal? It has nothing to do with whether he wants it or not, because we know he wants to get paid. Is Snyder willing to pay him? Because what happens with NFL contracts, and it has to do with the sale of the team, is when you sign a long-term extension at the beginning of the new year, so in March something, when free agency starts, that's the start of a brand new league year, which is why they allow teams to exchange and go all elsewhere. The owner must have that money in an escrow account. So say he signs a 4-year deal for $80 million and 50 of it is guaranteed. Dan Snyder has to make sure that $50 million is in this account. Two things. A, does he want to? B, does Dan Snyder have that type of money? Dude is not swimming on cash right now with all the lawsuits he's dealing with. So that, at the press conference at the end of the year, Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew said the words budget several times. Yeah. When in our time as Skins, Commanders, football team fans, have we ever heard the term budget before?
Never.
No. Mm-mm. So that makes you wonder if, what do we have to play with? What type of money? Now, when Carson Wentz gets released, we're going to have between $30 and $40 million. I don't know what it is right now. But, if you sign a Deron Payne to a 1-year deal, if you franchise tag him and he's getting $20 million, you're going to have 10 or 20 million left. Is that going to be enough to shore up the offensive line, the linebacker court? Like, is that get draft picks? Is that going to be enough? Especially if we're close to that $30 million, is that enough to play with for the rest of the season, for the rest of the offseason? So that's a concern. Now, I'm going to present a scenario to you that I never thought could be possible. And my gosh, I know Anton, you're listening to this. I wish Ab was listening to this right now, because I'm going to say something that's music to his ears. What if you could franchise Daron Payne and trade him? What would you think about that?
How does that even work?
Well, because you've signed him, he's on your team. So if you franchise tag him, you're committing to whatever it is. So this is a member of your team, no different if you were to trade Antonio Gibson or Terry McLaurin or anything like that. Yeah. What if you were to get a second and a fifth round pick for Daron Payne? Would you consider that?
Yeah, you're not getting the first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think you'd get a first either.
A second is a solid pickup. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it would be a nice option, but franchise tag him then trade him. Is that right?
Hey man, that's what Harry Roseman would do. That's the Philly way of doing things.
Are we? Yeah, we're not Philly, man. They're openly trying to be the way they are. We're not them, right, man. I don't know. I mean, it seems possible, but anything in the business realm of side of it is very possible.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be like the dream scenario to do that?
Well, right, because then we're saving money and we're still being able to get return back from it.
We're getting better picks. If we lose Daron Payne, we're going to get a compensation pick for it. We lost Brandon Sheriff last year. We're about to get a third round pick back for Brandon Sheriff. Now, albeit it's all 32 teams get to pick in the third round, and then they give these compensation picks if you lose players. So we would get a third round pick for Daron Payne next year. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like essentially a fourth round pick. So yeah, if you could franchise tag him and trade him, even if you're getting a second, that's your chance to draft a rookie to take over that spot. The only thing I would be wondering is, what if you can't make a deal with somebody? Like, you better have this in place. Like, you better be saying, hey, Atlanta, we know you need a defensive tackle. Here's your chance to get Daron Payne. We will franchise tag him. We will trade him to you. You give us a second round pick and a 6. He's yours. Extend him. You got him. Here's your way to get a guy. So you would have to have that in place. Again, because we talk salary cap. Here's my thing. I'm going to let him go. Okay? But I'm not just going to let him go and ride with Jonathan Allen. I'm going to try and get a Tim Settle type replacement for him. A younger player, not even younger, someone that has been buried on a depth chart that can come in and spell Jonathan Allen. I don't want another big guy, that just takes up space. I want someone who can pass rush. But to try and go with the idea that this guy could come in and play a couple snaps a game, we're talking 5 to 10 max as part of a rotation, maybe 15 max, I should say it. But I would say I think we need to save some money. As much as I love Daron Payne, what he's become to us, I think we need to shore up the offensive line, and we may need to bring in a veteran, a free agent to do that. And I don't know if I can allocate $20 million to him. I just, unless he's, and I don't know with Sweat and Chase behind that, I don't know if I can get on board with paying 2 defensive tackles.
That's the other side of it, is having to pay not only him, but then in the next couple years in succession, having to pay Sweat and then having to pay Chase. And, even though the injury, Chase is still going to get
they're all unknown.
Some money.
Right.
Yeah. And same with Sweat. I mean, they're going to start demanding money, especially if Sweat has a year like he had this past year. But it is something. But and I know this was a funny thing, but it's a true point, considering and weighing the options. Just don't wait till the sale ends. Right now, Daron Payne is Pro Bowler. Right now, he's 11.5 sacks. Right now, all these accolades are on him. So if we're going to shop him, let's do that. Let's get this now towards the very end of the season, before it gets to the point where it's like, now we're stuck with, we have to pay him or cut him. You know what I mean? Let's start to market him if that's the move that we're going to make. We are opposite sides of it, but at the same time, when it comes down to finances and building up, we do need more money to build other guys in there. I mean, who knows? We can get it. You talk about Tim Settle. I mean, why not get Tim Settle back? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to work something out. Or even Ioannidis. Ioannidis, remember, he was gone. He was not happy with how things went, but he also wasn't happy with Sam Mills III. Sam Mills III is out. You have a guy that Ioannidis played with in Kerrigan, who actually is Kerrigan still with us?
Yeah,
He's still with us. I thought, but he was a
For
Pro
now.
Bowl. That's why. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? But you have guys that it's a familiarity, and from my knowledge, we liked Ioannidis. I was very upset when Ioannidis left us. So if we're
that's
talking
a perfect example of what you talk about, a type of player who could come in and play and not be as expensive.
Right. And he knows the system. It's a solid fit. So if we are going to entertain getting rid of Deron Payne or trying to figure out a way to, move on from him, then yes, let's look at some of those guys that maybe we had, or some of those guys that are, maybe like you said, buried in the depth chart. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But look, let's move on down that list, because the next guy on one of the other guys on there, I got to shout out Tar Heel Nation, Cole Holcomb. Now, this year, he got hurt, so he was not able to complete the season. But in each of his years prior to that, he's up in the top 15, top 20 in tackles. He's getting over 100 tackles. He's dominating. Will, outside of my North Carolina love, and this is why I'm going to let you talk first, because I don't want the bias to come out. What are your thoughts? Because we know there's kind of a cap to him, but we also know he is so deeply immersed in this defense. He knows the calls. He knows, where people are going to be and things of that nature, and he gets the job done. We've seen it. Now, the flip side is Jamin Davis actually kind of played great in his absence. You know what I mean? So it makes you think, maybe we could move away from Cole and, get Jamin and maybe another rookie and start to really build that up with some athleticism. What are your thoughts on Cole, especially after this year?
Okay. I'll give you some facts. I'll give you 2 facts, okay?
Okay.
We need an upgrade at the mic. We have to have a middle linebacker, our quarterback of the defense, that is able to play all 3 downs and get everyone lined up. Jamin Davis may end up being that, but he excelled last year playing off ball. All right. He was not the mic. He was not having to do all that. And he played pretty well, but that's not him. So we need someone who can do that. Cole Holcomb slid into that role and, was playing, he was being the Cole Holcomb that he is. He makes tackles. He makes plays. Right. He's around the ball. So he could do that. He gets you said he gets a lot of tackles every single year. I mean, he had 140 tackles in 2021. So I'm going to name a couple of names that exchanged teams that had more tackles than him in 2021. I'm going to butcher this name. I'm not even going to try. The linebacker from the Falcons that went to the Jaguars.
Right.
Oluokun. Number 26, I think, was his number.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Roquan Smith was traded by his team. Bobby Wagner left the Seahawks and went to the Rams. Deion Jones was traded from the Falcons to the Browns for like a 6th-round pick. All these guys had more tackles than Cole Holcomb did. And their team said, go ahead. We're not going to pay you. So part of me feels like a high tackling linebacker is in that same situation of a running back. They're a dime a dozen. You can find one in the draft. You can find one on the streets. You can get somebody. So to Cole Holcomb, he's a good player. He's been a good player for us. A lot of value in the 5th round. Because of that injury, I'm intrigued to bring him back, as long as he's going to be a cheap deal. But if he wants to get paid based on 2021 stats, I'm letting him go.
Oh yeah. And I almost one of the things that I think you and I discussed is that if we can talk about money, if we can get him for cheap, if we can get him to stay for a little cheaper, and it almost makes me think of going into the 2020 season. And shout out to Ab, who was telling us, man, we need to shop Kerrigan. And he ended up going to Philly for next to nothing. And it's like, dude, if we could have brought him back here on $2 million, $1 million contract, you know what I mean? Something small, that would have been ideal. Even if he's just there to kind of be the leader and control things and settle the locker room, that would have been huge. So I think this is another one of those situations where, yes, he's not like those names. And some of those names are a lot flashier than Cole Holcomb. But I think that one of the things we have to do, definitely explore those options, because he's a company man. He comes in, does his
Mm-hmm.
job, great in house. And I really love his heart. He's a hustle guy. He's got heart,
Yes.
but he's just there's a hard ceiling on it, and he's not going to
Yes.
get much better with that. So yes, if we have the opportunity to bring in somebody like one of those names, absolutely. But again, it comes into price. What are we bringing them in for, and how long are we bringing? Because I feel like we could stick with what we know and get Holcomb for cheap on a multi-year something, maybe one
Yeah.
or 2 years, something like that. Keep it cheap. Just okay. We know that. We know we have that. Then if we bring somebody else in, we'll act accordingly. And if Holcomb has to sit, that's fine. He can help teach this guy because he's been around. I just feel like it's one of these things. Like right now, we have a nice little close net thing where we've had a pretty solid core from 2020 to 2020 to this point right now. Let's keep that. You know what I mean? Instead of switching it out, okay, who are we bringing in? Who they got to learn the system. And William Jackson was a man corner. He didn't fit everything like that. But that's kind of one of the things that it frustrates me because it's like we brought him in under the premise that he was going to be the guy, like he was going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to shut down the side or something like that. But he did not work in the scheme, and there wasn't an older corner to come in there and be like, hey, let's do it this way. This is what works. A lot of those guys are younger than him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I personally I want to keep Holcomb here, and that's bias aside. I definitely want to keep him here because for your part, I think we can get him for cheap. I think we can keep. He's not going to ask for this 6, 7, 8, $9 million contract. He's going to get a cheaper deal potentially, and then we could save money elsewhere. But I would rather get him and stash him than potentially let him go out in the market and then he goes to a Philly, a Dallas, and New York, and he's a thorn in our side for the next
Right.
couple years.
Oh, he'd be a really good player in those defenses. Like right now in ours, we need a playmaker. If he's not having to be playmaker, he's a really solid piece. I'd love to give him a 1-year deal since he's coming off an injury. And I say that also recognizing the last thing we need to do is deplete an already depleted roster of linebackers
Right.
and not bring back someone who's a starter. So yeah, like you say, if he's willing to come in cheap, if he's willing to do a 1-year deal, like let me prove that my, everything's good, I'm healed. Yeah, by all means. But I also don't want us to think that we signed Cole Holcomb so we don't need to address it. Because what about this idea? What if you decide to let Deron Payne go and put some of that money that you could have put in a long-term deal to Deron Payne towards some type of middle linebacker who can play? What if you go and get the dude Edmonds from Buffalo?
Ooh, yeah.
That
would be nice.
What if you really plug in somebody who can take over and allow Jamin to do what Jamin does because he's calling the plays, and takes over that. Like that could be something that could help make our defense a little bit more dynamic.
Oh yeah, I would love that. But then and again, this is all thought. This is me thinking about how we looked this past year. I would just, like you said, Deron Payne easily is a pass rusher and also a run stopper. Whereas you have the Ridgeways and Fedarian Mathis coming off the injury, where it's kind of like they're unproven. Like they played well, but they're really unproven. And then last thing we need is like a gap right in that area where they're running right through to our linebackers.
Yes.
Because before, when they weren't dominating on that D line, our linebackers were normally the first guys to get the tackle if it wasn't our secondary. You know what I mean? So whereas Terrell Edmonds would be great at that, and don't get it twisted, if we can get that situation, I'm all for that. I am all for that. But at the same time, I just it's you alluded to it. I just don't want to go backwards after we're like, okay, we're good. Like I could look at this defense right now and say I can start week 1 with them. They might struggle, and it might not be. It's not going to be blowing it up, but they're gelled, they're meshed together. We need some pieces definitely, and it's going to start becoming finances. Okay, we're going to take 30 from this, put it over here. Let's be, and they talked about budget. Let's move it around. So that's going to be interesting going forward. I could definitely see that work, and I would love Edmonds on my squad. He's got the pedigree. That would be great.
Come on, he's from DC. Come on.
All right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that would definitely be great, man. Let's move on down the list. I think this is the next in line, and it has to be a quarterback. Taylor Heineke is each year proven himself a little bit more, was able to get his 5 victories, kept us the shot in the arm, as we like to call him, all season
Mm-hmm.
long. And he has done, he did what we asked him to do. You know what I mean? It wasn't pretty all the time. It had us, squinting, not trying to look, that type of thing. But he came in there and he provided a jolt that we needed, and he helped us through the year. And to be honest with you, there was a point, even when Carson came back, where I said, I'm sorry, I feel the most comfortable that I feel with any of these quarterbacks is with Taylor. Now, we didn't see what Sam was going to do, and obviously
Right.
we were told that he wasn't working. He wasn't there yet. But Heineke just knows what he's doing, and so for that, and we know he's a backup, and we know he's a crowd favorite, but we also know that he might not want to stay. Maybe he wants to go elsewhere. Maybe he wants to try a shot because we disrespected him. Okay, he came in after he lost the playoff game in Tampa. We let him start, you know, and before we let him start, we said we're gonna test free agency. We get Fitzpatrick. Fitz gets hurt, unbeknownst to him, the hip situation, so he's out. Taylor gets the whole season. Then we do the same thing again, and we go get another high price quarterback. Bring him in, Carson. He lasts 5 games, then he goes out. So Taylor's kind of sitting here like, I'll win in DC, and I ain't no problem with it, but y'all are doing me dirty. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
who knows? Maybe Taylor ain't gonna try to sit around and say, "Oh, am I gonna wait for somebody else to come in, or are you gonna let this little kid, this rookie, my guy Sam Howell, are you gonna let him come in and take it from me?" So it's the disrespect from management that's come down to him, but we love him. We are all 100% on board. So where do we go from here with Taylor? I know that's your guy.
Yeah, it's a hard question, man. This is why I don't like. I'm happy I don't have to be general manager on this
Right.
because here are my two concerns about Heineke. Is he going to be as effective in a different offense?
Yeah.
That was what his biggest strength when in Scott Turner's offenses. He knew where to go with the ball because essentially this is the only offense he's ever really run in the NFL. So he's known it for a while. So he knows where to go with the ball. He just doesn't have the ability to get it there at times accurately or with enough zip on it to really do something with it. My other concern is if the goal of the team is to give Sam Howell a chance, with the love that fans have for Heineke, is that good for Howell? Where if he starts to struggle, that fans are going to start clamoring for Heineke. Give me 1 second. I got a cough.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that's my other concern. Now, the positives though behind it are he has mentioned publicly that he likes playing here, and he also seems to he's more humble than we thought. He's a confident dude. So you kind of wonder, is he cocky? He's not. He's confident, but he also understands his place in the league right now. He's like, I've been out of the league. I just want to be in the league. I want to play football. He says, I'd love to start, but there are only 32 of those, and not many teams are looking for a starter. So he kind of knows I can go in and be a backup somewhere and be happy with that. Mm-hmm. So there is a chance that he could come back here, and he does provide if something happens to Howell, if he falters, if he gets hurt, for 4 or 5 games a year, Heinick's going to keep you competitive.
Yeah.
So what you got there. Whereas if you do go out and go get a Jacoby Brissett, a Tyrod Taylor might be available for the upteenth time, to get Mitch Trubisky if he gets dropped by Pittsburgh because is that better than Heineke? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it is. It's like it's hard for me to kind of have an answer on this because it's like I don't know if you really have much better out there, and if he's willing to. My only concern would be is he's not exactly the veteran that I want. I want like an Andy Dalton to be grooming Howell, and Heineke's not that. But so I'm giving you the biggest non-answer in the world. I'm just giving you the pluses and minuses.
Right. I mean, because there's so much that encompasses this question, embodies this question. You sit here and you talk about the offensive coordinator. Scott Turner was his guy. Absolutely. And then you're talking about bringing somebody else in, and unless this other guy's going to mesh it kind of where Ron Rivera is to something similar to what Heineke ran a year ago, it's going to be different. And if we have it different, how well can Heineke pick up on that? Then you got to sit here and think, what's the long-term goal? We've proven that Heineke's not going to be our guy. Unless every other quarterback falls off the face of the planet, even then we're going to be asking other positions because we've proven that he's not our guy. We just don't. I don't know what it is about Washington, but at the same time, it's just like, dude, we love him. We've seen what he brings to the team. I almost feel like, how can you let him go? You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to demand all this big money. What is he still on? We signed him on a 2-year contract, right?
We did
a year ago. Yeah. So he still has, or is this?
No, he's a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent. Yeah. So
he'd be looking at $4 million.
Right? Does he want that? I mean, to his point, he said, "Hey, I just want to be a backup somewhere." But does he go somewhere and be a backup for a big name quarterback and come in and do right by them? You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of built up this allure about him in DC. I think it would be fine. He's been other places, but we bought into him. So, I mean, when you're looking at it from just a player standpoint and just we know what he provides, and the guys on this team, they buy in. Terry bought in. You know what I mean? These guys are just like, they just talk so glowingly of Taylor Heineke that it's just kind of, it does kind of almost handicap us where it's like, we can't really get rid of him unless we are going to say we're going in this direction, we're going in that direction, we're doing this specifically. But we're talking contracts, we're talking money, we're talking coaches, we're talking ownership, there's so many other things at play with Taylor Heineke that I feel like I'm doing the same thing you're doing. We want to keep him. Everything says, hey, keep him. Yeah. But it's just it. I don't know that we can have an answer right now.
Right. It may be too early. The other thing you got to think about is, I mean, does he want to be third string behind Sam Howell and Tom Brady? That's the other factor there.
Wait. You mean 4th string besides Sam Howell, Tom Brady, and Lamar Jackson? Because
there you go. Yeah,
they're both coming. Man, we'll definitely see, man. Because hey, like we said, we all like Taylor Heineke, but
we love him, the nostalgia. But yeah, I'm good with giving the no answer right now. Like, it's too early. Yeah, we don't know who's a free agent, who else is going to be the free agent quarterback right now. I'm not ready to answer that question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So look, let's go on down the list. We have other guys. I know Anton was talking about Jeremy Reeves, who showed up, got into the Pro Bowl. I think, I mean, we're talking about that young secondary. Yes, I think we need to bring him back. We need to keep that secondary as intact, in my opinion, as possible, because these guys finally meshed together, finally gelling. And I think there was no more evident than the game after William Jackson III left. After we traded him to the Steelers, you just saw the word that everybody said is the phrase they said there's no communication issues anymore. Now, I'm not gonna. They didn't say William Jackson was the issue, but they just said there's no communication issues anymore. So, like, we have to keep these guys together. He's proven himself, but not only in the secondary, but also on special teams, and that's something. I mean, we have Tress Way, we have Cheeseman. Let's start solidifying the pieces to this puzzle. He's one of these pieces that's really playing well, and we already saw the video of him getting the Pro Bowl thing where he said to Ron, "I'll run through a brick wall for you." Let's stick with somebody like this. So I'm all about him staying.
Right. Yeah, this is a no-brainer. This is an absolute. It does seem like they want to see Percy Butler play over him. So I'm the biggest Jeremy Reeves. Like, get him on the field. Let's play this guy. They don't. But he is a special team stalwart. And beyond Pro Bowl, I'll be honest, I don't really take much stock in Pro Bowl. His video is amazing, but what matters is all pro. Mm-hmm. And what also matters happened this season is when the media and then other players do their voting on who is, first team players. The outsider, the other folks nationwide named Jeremy Reeves as the special teams guy. So like
Ooh,
everyone else knows that this guy's a special
yes,
teams stalwart. He's not just a
yes.
good player. He's not a Troy Apke of special teams,
Hmm.
like good player, going to contribute. He is like the stud there that they game plan around about
Yeah.
stopping. So yeah, give him a 3-4 year deal. Let this man finally have some peace of
Hmm.
knowing I've made a roster and I've arrived.
And another thing with this, we have to keep this in house because I'm gonna bring up a name that was also a special teams guy that we let go and just made a name for himself elsewhere. Um, is it Lorenzo Alexander?
Yes.
Stud for us, just a
Yes.
special teams guy, play a little defense. We loved him, but cap money things just didn't work out. We let him go. I think he went to what, Arizona, maybe,
Arizona,
or
Buffalo.
maybe Buffalo. He went somewhere and he absolutely balled out. Was a perennial star on that team, and we were just kicking ourselves like, here we go. So again, it's special teams and everything, but at the same time, like you said, they all got a game plan for him. And I love that we have somebody like that and on a position that really doesn't necessarily, unless you're the kicker and sometimes the punter, you're not really getting that recognition, or the returner, you're not getting
Right.
that recognition. And Reeves got it, and so many people noticed that, and a lot of that's your heart. You have heart, you have passion. You go out there and ball out, do whatever you want. Like, people pick up on that, and they respect that, and they'll play for you. And he showed up, especially later in the season. So yeah, we definitely got to
Mm-hmm.
keep it. We
Yep.
definitely got to keep
Yeah, I agree.
it. All right, moving down the list, we got Wes Schweitzer. Versatile, can play several positions. Uh, I think we need to more so for the same reason I've been saying a lot of these guys is because there's a camaraderie, there's a comfort in knowing, but also in the fact that we tried to bring in two linemen, they didn't work. I think it's pretty safe to say that they were underwhelming this year. So let's keep in a guy that if he can stay on the field, we know we can put him at different spots. And that's talking about that depth potentially, just in case if somebody else, we draft a guy or bring somebody else in that's maybe more suited for a position. Okay, fine. We can move him here. We can move him over here, and it can still kind of work to where we might have a hole here, but he can fill that. So I would say keep him, but a lot of that is also we still got to see what the moves we're going to make. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts?
very much so. What I think would be interesting to find out with Wes Schweitzer is what does the staff feel about the other pieces? They
Mm-hmm.
started Chris Paul in the game against Dallas because they wanted to see what he got, and he played relatively well. Andrew Norwell is actually on contract for next season, and if you
Hmm.
cut him, you're not really saving a lot. Like you may only be saving like $1.5 million, maybe two. So does it make sense to keep him around to be your backup? If not have to rely on this guy as a starter. So if that's the case, what I'm trying to get at is, do we need Schweitzer if Norwell and Paul are there as backups, as primary
Mm-hmm.
backups at guard? Do we need, if we draft another guard, do we need a Wes Schweitzer? I'm not
Yeah.
sure. It may be a situation where like, yeah, we like you, we'd love to bring you back, but he may say, I have a chance to play better somewhere else. Like you guys are
True.
trying to do a youth movement, past it. However, the thing that he's got going for him, as you said, was versatility because
Mm-hmm.
he did come in and start and play a right guard, and then he became our starting center at the end of the year.
Yeah.
He actually surpassed a proven center, not proven, but a guy who played center in college and in the pros, and he passed him on the depth chart as a better player. And Schweitzer came up as a guard, so he became a center, but he's not an actual center. So that versatility would make him helpful. So I wouldn't be upset if he comes back. I just kind of wonder if he's going to say there's other opportunities for me elsewhere, and he'll go elsewhere.
Well, on my roster construction, he's one of my 13 linemen.
Yeah,
So
he would be.
you know,
With you, his job is safe. That is
he is
correct.
good. He is
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I need 3 lines. All right.
yeah. You do. You
First
do.
tier, second tier, and third tier.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
I'll never forget that. That was so
Cut
funny.
wide receivers, cut everything.
How many of these guys you gonna have?
When random guys weren't even on the team, like, yes, bring him. He's big.
You
Let's go.
did. You did.
Oh man, yeah. So I'm with that, and let's stick right with the O line and Tyler Lawson.
Yeah.
He had the injury too, And that I think that's going to weigh more heavily on it. Um, because I do think we health has been the biggest issue. Even when we had Sheriff, we always knew he was going to get hurt. We need consistent O linemen. When is the last time that the announcers or somebody said, "Oh, this O line for Washington has played together for the last 36 games or 3 years or whatever." Like
Right.
we need that consistency on O line, and that's why I like Schweitzer because he can move. He is very versatile. With Tyler, I know he has the ability, he can do it, but that injury is just kind of like, I mean, if we don't have anywhere else, okay, but it just goes along with that consistency. And so he would be a casualty for me.
So yes, it's interesting because the past 2 seasons he's had to come in and start for us at center, and he's done a good job. He's
Right.
become very serviceable. It's one of those things where you can't see how good he can be until he actually gets out there, because the part of the center's job is making blitz calls and kind of sticking around with that. But I'm with you. The bigger problem is he hasn't been able to finish the last 2 seasons either, and now he's put us to a situation where we're playing a Wes Schweitzer. We're moving a guard over to play center 2 years in a row. We can't be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm good with bringing him back to the point of saying, yeah, but you're going to have to earn this roster spot, and also knowing that if we cut him, I don't know where else he's going to sign. So there's a chance we could put him on the practice squad and have him for us. So I'm good bringing him back, but I'm not relying on him next year. I want a draft pick that we're grooming to take over.
Right. And that's the thing with a lot of these linemen is, albeit they are good and they have shown signs of, okay, we can really build with this. The health is the ultimate thing that I think is holding, at least leaving me with reservations about these guys, to the point where, with like we mentioned with Schweitzer, his versatility is key, because going back to even Gibbs, like with those Washington teams, you had to have multiple positions. If you're on the O line, maybe you had to play a little special teams, or maybe you had to do a little, this and that. D line, same thing. You had to have a lot of positions, because those guys were like a lot of those teams were versatile. You look at Brian Mitchell, who came and played quarterback for us one time, kick returner, punt returner, wide receiver, running back, whatever. And that wasn't all of them, but that's huge. And they stayed on the field. Health is going to be a major issue, and I'm going to stick with the O line and talk Trey Turner, because it's the same. It's the same. It's the injuries. We already know coming into this year that the Steelers didn't re-sign him. They had a trash O-line when they let him go. We picked him up, and when he was on the field, he wasn't great. So, what was our deal? Was it a 1 year with him? Because in my opinion, I'm saying cut. I'm saying, hey, didn't work. Just wipe your hands with it and keep moving. Because I didn't see anything. Norwell, there was games where you're like, oh, okay, all right, you did decent. I wish you would do this all the time, but okay. Trey Turner was, there are times he just gets blown up, and he's just having the whole. I'm just like, dude, no. So for me, done. I see what you wrote on. I didn't see what you.
So I'm gonna go up to Trey Turner. I'm gonna extend my hand. I'm gonna shake his hand and say, Trey, congratulations. You've had a great NFL career. Please retire. Your days are past you.
You're done. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And I also say that, meaning that I want Chris Paul to be in that role. I want us to do an upgrade at guard, and Chris Paul could be someone as a backup.
Yeah.
No, we don't need to be worried about Trey Turner.
Now, look, so there's a bunch of kind of other names that we had on here. We talked about Cole Holcomb earlier in that middle linebacker position. So David Mayo. He's one of those guys. One of the things that we know about him, he can call the plays. He can set up the defense. We know he's good at that. And that's about it. I mean, that time I saw David Mayo trying to run with the receivers, it was like, no. So this was one of those picks that was 51 or 52 of the 53. It's not correct. 53 or 54, right? Where he's been cut, he's been re-signed, this and that. We know what we're getting out of him. But this is where I feel like upgrade is necessary. Cole Holcomb, I can make an excuse for you to stay, but we don't need to continue to go to the John Bostics and the David Mayos and continually bring back that, because that's bringing back the mediocrity. We don't want that. Let's move up from them. So that's my opinion. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, he may be better than what we had behind him, but yeah, I mean, it's if we bring him back, it's because you have no guarantee to make this team, and I'm hoping you're our 53rd guy if you make it. You're the last guy that I say, all right.
Yeah. Now, two guys on defense that did kind of make a little bit of name, or they showed signs, they showed glimpses of definitely highlights, definitely towards the end of the season. Your boy, David Johnson. And
Danny Johnson. I spelled that wrong.
I was looking at that. I was like,
who's David Johnson?
I was like, David Johnson. Yeah. But Danny Johnson and then F.A. Obata. Mm-hmm. There are definitely times, definitely towards the end of the year, Danny Johnson, you've been talking about him a lot. But F.A. Obata is one of those that you hear his name come in, and you hear him come in from time to time. But then for me, all I can remember is we blocked the kick at right before the half in the first Cowboys game, and F.A. Obata just kind of just lackadaisically runs to the ball, where if he picks it up, he could have taken it back for two. I mean, we don't know if he would have done that, but I mean, if he would have done that, changes the whole dynamic of the game. So I love what he brings to the table, and especially with Chase kind of getting back fully into the groove, I feel like we're going to need somebody like that. And I like him a little bit better than maybe Smith Williams and some of those guys. But what are your thoughts about Obata and then Johnson? I mean, are these stick keepers?
I think Johnson more so than Obata. I mean, I think Obata is a rotational piece. Like you said, we've got behind him, you got Casey Toohill, James Smith Williams, and F.A. Obata. Those three kind of back up both Chase and Montez. So if he comes back, great. If he doesn't, we can probably find someone that does similar stuff as to what he did. He's a role player. He can get you some snaps. Danny Johnson, I think, has earned the right to come back and be a part of our mix. He started against the Cowboys. That was also, injury related. He made improvements as the season went on, significant improvements in December, and that was big. This is where it's kind of like, oh man, losing Chris Harris is even more of a detriment. Now, if you've got Danny Johnson as your fourth or fifth corner, it could be worse. We just gotta upgrade what's in front of him. Yep. He cannot be the three. He cannot be we just, as you and I keep saying, we need someone behind St. Juice who can come in and play. And it can't be Danny Johnson. There's got to be someone, a buffer in between there, because St. Juice can't be relied on to stay healthy right now.
Right. And we cannot afford a drop off, which is something that we had to deal with. You know what I mean? We had finally got to the point where St. Juice was covering their number one guy, AJ Brown in that Eagles game all the way around. But if you can't stay on the field, so trading over to the offense, and I'll say one before I say the other, because I think we already know where the other. Jonathan Williams, he came on late due to the injuries, but I mean, he obviously showed out in preseason, but especially in that Eagles game, that second Eagles game, some of those runs that he had where he was busting for about 8, 9, 10 yards, and he's carrying guys, and you're double taking like, is that Brian? Oh, that's not Jonathan Williams. Whoa, okay. Yeah. You loved him. You've been talking about him. You're the one who said he should have made the top 3 sticking on the team as far as that running back. So what do you think? You think we keep him? I'm all about it, because he's proven it to me in that running game.
Yep, I am, because I think he's going to be, dirt cheap, and I think I think he'd be willing to stick around. I think he's going to be battling for a roster spot, so why not? Yeah, absolutely. He should flash it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Would you put him over? Obviously him and Jared Patterson, battling for touches. Would you put him over Jared Patterson if you had to?
Definitely. I think the fact that he started against the Cowboys showed that he's ahead of him. What I'm unsure about is come next year, it's like, what's going on with J.D. McKissick's recovery from his neck injury?
Yes.
So what happens there? Because, I think Williams it can be a part of the mix, to be running back 3 if there's no McKissick, or he'd be running back 4. But yeah, I think he's the type of player who'll probably make the practice squad next year, and then with attrition, injuries, etc., get bumped up at some point.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see it.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see it. And last and least, I'm not even gonna say not least. Cam Sims. I'm not going to lie to you, Will. Forgot he was even on the team. I know there's times I was like, Sims? What? Really? What do you think? I
Well,
don't see a spot.
I'll give him this is his plus. He's a pretty good special teams player. He, along with Reeves and Holmes and Milo Eifler's usually down there. He's usually down there making tackles on punts. So
Yeah.
that may be his saving grace to making the team next year. But I am out on the Cam Sims helping us as wide receiver. We need a tall receiver to be grooming instead because he's had so many years to show that he could be consistent, and I don't know why, but it just doesn't happen. It's just he's the preseason favorite. He makes flashes in preseason and then doesn't do anything in the regular season for 2, if not 3, if not 4 years now. I'm sure we can find another big-bodied wide receiver to groom as a pass catcher. So yeah, sure if you want him for special teams, but he is not on my 53 going into the offseason at all.
No. And as you heard from my previous statement, wasn't on my 53 last year, but somehow it's on the teams.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. That's one of the spots that I would sacrifice for another lineman. Just letting you know, Cam.
Yeah. Yep.
Ew. So and going forward, where are there any other places that you think we need to address that might not be guys necessarily with expiring contracts, but maybe on the way out?
Yeah, there's a little bit of talk. Chase Roulier, we got to think about the fact that we've got this expensive center. He's going to cost $12 million next year, and he hasn't finished the last 2 seasons. How's he going to come back from that injury? And is there something? The problem is cutting him doesn't really give you a whole lot of cap savings, as in I think maybe 3, maybe 4 million. Like I think if you cut him, you have a dead cap of 8, so you save 4. But that could be spun into somebody else. The other one I kind of wonder about is Logan Thomas. He was pretty outspoken in this offense this year. He didn't really have a very impactful year. Maybe he was hurt, with the injury recovery more than we realized. I'm not exactly sure, but he's another situation where you're only going to save like $2 or $3 million by cutting him. I think that could be something the following year that he gets let go. But again, if you're talking $3-4 million, what if that turns into someone else that can be impactful? What if you double those and put them into a linebacker or into, golly, what if you put it into that's Deron Payne's, long-term deal. His first year, he's making $8 million because he has this big signing bonus, So there could be some looks in that, but you just got to think right now, like we're paying William Jackson and Landon Collins right now to have gone away. So that do you want to add more in dead cap where you're paying for guys to be gone? So that's the only thing, but there could be some movement there.
Yeah. And that goes back to our OC conversation because if you bring a guy like Thomas Jones in here, not only is he assistant coach, but he's also Thomas Brown. Yeah, I was thinking of the Bears running back. I don't know.
That's my beloved running back from the University of Virginia.
Oh, I know it. Oh, boo. But if you bring in a Thomas Brown, who's the assistant head coach, but also the tight ends coach, you think about some of those guys in for the Rams. Higbee has made a name for himself over the last couple of years. So if we bring him in, it makes me want to think, okay, all right, let's see what you got, Lo, because we have talent there. We have Rodgers, we have Cole Turner, even though he totally didn't do anything for us this year. But we have Bates, and then, as you know, Logan Thomas. And Logan Thomas had a couple
Amani
moments.
Rodgers, too.
Right. So these guys have had moments, but there's been no consistency at tight end, and that is such a huge part for our offense because we do run a lot of the play action offense, the bootleg and a lot of that stuff where you're rolling out, and he's that main target. So, and speaking of Cam Sims, we're talking about having a big target towards the red zone. Cole Turner, Logan Thomas, these guys are the big bodied guys that we're supposed to show out. But like you said, Logan Thomas, the injury, he definitely did not look like himself from the year before. I almost wonder and worry that that's the kind of what we're going to get from Chase Young this next coming year. You know what I mean? It's just getting back into what they were. It's going to be interesting. But I mean, that plays into it. That plays in because I too, and we've been talking about the tight ends all year. Yeah, they have been just lackluster and underwhelming, and
Non-factor.
right. And so, I mean, they were supposed to be the big help, the big safety blanket or the safety net for Carson Wentz, and they didn't help with that at all. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's something that we're gonna definitely have to take a look at.
I would be so surprised if we cut Logan, only because I feel like he's still the best of what we got. And I know there's a lot of talk like they like Rodgers, they like Cole Turner, they like Cole Turner, whatever, but like I don't think they're ready to take his spot yet.
No, oh no.
Yeah, so I think if that happens, I would be like, we need to sign a tight end one. Right. I'm not ready to anoint any of our guys.
And if that happens, I think we might have our eyes somewhere else. I mean, that would be the only real reason. Because, in my opinion, Cam Sims is the guy that if it's up to two of them, Cam Sims goes for me. Because even with Logan at the percentages he is, and maybe he's at 65, 70%, he's still better in my eyes. And he can kind of roll with how the offense plays better than Cam Sims. So I would definitely want to keep him, but let him know his job's, not in jeopardy, but let him know, we're watching.
Exactly. I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
Hey, there it is. There's going to be a lot more conversation to go around about free agents, different players. We're going to start diving into positions and seeing how they did. What are we looking forward to coming into the new season, leading us into the free agency and the draft, and where we should go and what positions do we need to harp on, and all of this will all be happening at the same time that hopefully Dan Snyder will be removed from Washington. We're hoping. And dare I even say praying? We need to call in a higher power, Will?
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Absolutely.